Hello and welcome back to Bookish. Today I'm here with another BookTube tag. This is the BookTube Snooker tag, or Snooker tag maybe as you say it if you're English. And this is a tag created by Alan Moreton. I'll leave a link to his original tag video down below. Please go check that out and go check out his channel. Puts out a lot of really good content. And if you're not already a subscriber, you should definitely think about going over there and checking him out. This tag is based on I'm going to call it the billiards game, Snooker. I've never played Snooker in my life. I've never seen it played. I think I joked with Alan that my mom used to have a cat named Snooker, and that's about as close as I've come. But according to Alan's video, it is a game in which different colored balls have to be sunk in a certain order. And so the prompts are all related to the different color balls, and they go in the order in which the balls have to be sunk in the game Snooker. So that sounds kind of like fun to me, and I learned something about Snooker from Alan, so thank you for that. So the first ball that has to be sunk is the red ball, and so red is the color of anger, and so the first prompt is to name a book that made you see red. I'm going to pick this biography of the American author Sinclair Lewis by Mark Shorer. It's called Sinclair Lewis, An American Life. And this book actually made me angry because it's the type of psychological biography that I really dislike, because they of course attempt to explain all of a person's actions based on childhood incidents and traumas. And this book, it just contains several of those, which just had me rolling my eyes. It just kind of boggled my imagination that he could take as one of the themes of such a big book about an important American literary figure and you know, draw it all back to one or two unpleasant childhood incidents. So you know, that made me angry. The second ball that has to be sung is the yellow ball. So Alan says yellow is a sunny color, which reminds him of summer. So to name a book that reminds you of summer or that you'd want to read in the summer, I chose The Van by Roddy Doyle. Roddy Doyle is an Irish author. His books are oftentimes humorous, funny, poignant. This is the second book about the Rabbit family. There's The Commitments, The Van, and The Snapper, all following the same family. In this case, the book centers around Jimmy Rabbit Sr. and his friend Bimbo, who buy a fish and chips van and attempt to make money by selling fish and chips, and their ownership of the van happens to coincide with Ireland's appearance in the 1990 World Cup, and I think they had some improbable wins, or maybe an improbable win at some point in that. If you've never read Roddy Doyle, you might check out these books. They are funny and humorous and really enjoyable. So the next ball that has to be sunk is the green ball. Alan says green reminds you of spring, so to name a book that reminds you of spring. So in a minute I'm going to talk about something that is true, I discovered when looking over my bookshelves today, and it's kind of related to what I want to talk about. So my spring book is Daisy Miller by Henry James. This short little novella is fairly famous. It's oftentimes kind of imitated. It's one of Henry James's most popular works. It tells a story of a young American heiress who's in Europe. She's going to make a good match when she falls in love with an Italian young man with little money, and then she dies. So you may be asking yourself, why does that remind you of spring? And the reason it reminds you of spring is because it's about love. Yes, a tragic love story, but a love story nonetheless. The next ball that has to be sunk is the brown ball. Alan says brown is a somber and serious color, so to name a book with a somber or serious theme. And so I chose Nothing to be Frightened of by Julian Barnes. Realize from being on BookTube for a while that there's some BookTubers don't really care for Julian Barnes. This is essentially a memoir, long-form essay about death. I enjoyed parts of it. I thought it was kind of interesting just, you know, hearing his thoughts and how he strung together kind of memoir stuff with his ideas about death and dying and religion and etc. I just found it kind of interesting, so I chose this book as my book on a somber or serious tone. The next ball that has to be sunk is the blue ball. Alan says blue is the color of sadness, so to name a sad book or a melancholy book. And so I chose William Styron's A Tidewater Morning. This is actually 3 stories based on things from Styron's youth. William Styron is a really talented American writer who oftentimes is overlooked. This little collection of 3 stories, the stories themselves are not necessarily sad or melancholy, even though some are, but it's the author's kind of love, affection, remembrance of growing up in the Tidewater area of Virginia that made this the book that stood out to me as kind of a melancholy book. Maybe melancholy more than we think of sad, just like remembering a time, a place in your life. The next ball that has to be sunk is the pink ball. Alan says pink is a bright, cheerful, happy color. So to name a book that made you happy or made you feel uplifted or made you cheerful. And this is where, I ran into a problem when looking at my books. I don't have a lot of happy books. Kind of made me sad not having a lot of happy books. But then I remembered that one of the things that makes me happy is really good nonfiction and really good history. And so I chose for this the most dangerous book, The Battle for James Joyce's Ulysses by Kevin Birmingham. This tells the story of the publication of Joyce's Ulysses and all the struggles it had to go through with obscenity charges and getting it printed and all the people who played a role in getting it printed. And it's just really well done. And this is an example of nonfiction that is well done, well researched, interestingly written, and it's made me happy because it's an example of nonfiction intellectual history done, in my opinion, about as good as it can be done. And the last ball that has to be sunk is the black ball, and Alan says black is the color of depression and sadness. So to go out on a bang and to choose a book that made you feel sad. So nobody makes me feel sadder than Samuel Beckett. Not that I've read a lot of Samuel Beckett, but I did read Malloy. The subject matter of the book is sad. The main character, Malloy, all we really know about him is that he's a writer of some kind. He's moved into his mother's old bedroom. She's dead, and he's writing, and he essentially says he has to write until he dies. He ventures out, he gets in trouble with the police, and then he viciously assaults a charcoal maker, I believe, and apparently kills him. The second part of the book involves a character named Moran, who's some kind of a detective who's sent to search for Malloy, and then Moran ends up killing someone that he meets in his search for Malloy and hiding his body in the woods, and his son disappears. And well, all of that should sound like it's not very cheerful. I'll have to tell you something else though. Malloy also is a book that makes me sad because it's one of those books I read and I'm not sure I understood it, and I'm not sure I'll ever be smart enough to get it. So there you go. That's my BookTube Snooker tag. Thank you, Alan, again for tagging me. I want to tag several people. So I want to tag Dane from Dane Reads. If you haven't checked out Dane's channel, he's a really big channel, and I don't mean this meanly. He spends some times in bars because he performs in bars, so maybe he's been around a snooker table. I want to tag Mike from the Postmodern Poetry Prognosticator channel because I want to see this tag done with poetry. I want to tag Andrea from Infinite Text, primarily because she reads a lot of books about death, and so I thought some of these would be, right up her alley, some of these prompts. And then I want to tag Madeline from Made with Books. And maybe it's because she's just a cheerful, optimistic person. Maybe I want to get even, somebody who embraces the happy parts of this tag better. And then finally I want to tag Dennis from the Intellectual Reader. He's a new channel I just found. You should go over and check them out. I'll leave links to all their channels below. Let me know what you think of my answers to the prompt in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.